and welcome to season 3 of Cat Calls. I am your host, Kat Bine, and this is my show that I do most Thursdays here on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/KATBEIN. The cat part's right there, you can't miss that, but the BEIN, it's like being, but with the G gone, but everyone always says it's Bine and all this shit. Whatever, now with 200% more dogs. That's right, Joey Headset. Did you know that Flat Eric is supposed to be a dog? Yeah, it's not a monkey, which is what it looks like, but Mr. Wazzo is a surrealist weirdo, and that's supposed to be a dog. And this is supposed to be a show where I interview people, but it's not just my show, it's your show. And I am so excited to see my friends Miriam and Joey Headset in the chat. And if you're out there, you need to say hello because you're my friend too. And if you're out there and you can't say hello because you're watching this later on YouTube, where I post all of my Cat Calls episodes, then you should come on down to the show. Come next Thursday. Come this Thursday. Come any fucking Thursday. Put your hand in a hat and pull out a date. Come on down. I have so many great guests coming in. Season 3 of Cat Calls. Can't believe I've been doing this for 3 seasons. But we're not here to talk about them, and we're not here to talk about you, although I love you. We are here to talk about you. But we are here to give a big round of applause to today's guest helping me launch Season 3 of Cat Calls. Everyone give it up to Slumberjack. Yes. I think I finally got the applause to work. I noticed it wasn't working before, but now it is working. Okay, I want to just say I'm very excited to have Slumberjack on the show. This is actually my first time getting to speak with these gentlemen. The Australian duo has been hard at work conjuring magical soundscapes for nearly a decade. Hailing from Borneo, which is not in Australia, it's an Asian island, and Perth, respectively, Morgan and Fletcher's music lies somewhere between, and if you'll allow me to use other famous Australians as signposts, somewhere between the textural mountains of Flume and the emotional seas of Rufus de Sol, okay? Which is a really wonderful place to be. Slumberjack has been a must-listen duo with formative EPs, including a self-titled release, Fracture, Sarawak, which I probably said wrong, and Black and Blue, which I definitely said right. But last week, the duo released its official debut album, titled Dichotomy. It is a sweeping cinematic world that reveals itself across 12 expertly crafted tunes. It's truly a marvelous wonder. It's really, really great. You need to listen to it from front to back, and I think you need to listen to it from front to back specifically because they definitely put a lot of thought into the flow of this thing. I mean, it's a true work of art, and I'm very excited to celebrate the release of it with them here today. We're going to start things off with a live performance of album tracks Memory and the Reprise, and when we come back, we will have Slumberjack on the line. So don't hang up, you guys. Cat Call Season 3, let's go. And here we are. It is I, Kat, with Fletcher and Morgan of Slumberjack. And also there's a little Edna paw poking up maybe there. I don't know if you can see. Oh, there's Edna. See, I promised dog content, and you have dog content. Let nobody say that Cat Calls does not deliver. Hello, Morgan and Fletcher. Please say hello.
How are you? Hi, how are you?
I am so good, and I just, first of all, I want to thank you for being a part of the first episode of Cat Calls Season 3. It's so great to have you. And I also just want to say congratulations on the release of your debut album, Dichotomy. That's a big deal.
Thank you very much. It kind of is a big deal. We don't tend to celebrate ourselves very much.
Edna's going to celebrate you for you both.
Yeah, I'll just let her looking like that so she stays distracted. Yeah, it's man, we're so excited for the album. We're very excited to hear it.
Yeah, I really want to dig into all of the nuts and bolts of that process. But first, why don't we talk about what we were just watching? We were watching the live performance of Memory and the Reprise on Pile TV, I believe. Those songs were kind of originally the same song. Is that true?
Yeah, so Memory was like, we wrote Memory first. And it was like this big nostalgic, like, big festival type of track.
Big
and then we kind of were playing with the vocals, and we're like, he'd sent over these really dark like choir vocals, which you hear at the start
It's
of the
Gregorian.
reprise.
It sounds so
Yeah.
Gregorian.
Ooh.
And that didn't actually make it into memory, but we were kind of playing around with those sounds that he'd recorded, and it kind of took us down this path of like a much darker version. And then we put some of the other vocals in, but over like a darker chord progression, and it took on a more sinister feel. And it kind of felt like we had to do this literal dichotomy of like the happy version and then the dark version of the same record. And so naturally, when Pile Rats, who are a Australian media blog music,
they've been
outlet,
a long and loyal supporter of Slumberjack from the start.
yeah, they hit us up to do like a live performance of a track for their series Made in the Pile, or Live at the Pile, I think. And we were like, we were going to mash these two tracks together into this one long epic thing.
I love that. I feel like that was a really well chosen song to open our conversation today, whether or not y'all did it on purpose, because you just touched on so many beautiful elements that I want to talk to you about. You touched on the fact that these two songs are in themselves a dichotomy, a play on light and dark and these kind of polar opposites or polar ends, right? I love that you brought up Gregorian chants, and I love that in itself is this weird nod to like the memory of music, the roots of music. And I know that you're also into world music. I'm sorry, I'm just spewing now because you already got me going. I'm very excited. And it sounds like Pile TV was itself a chance to celebrate your own memory as musicians with these people who have supported you from the beginning.
From the start.
But let's talk about that. Let's dive into your own personal memories a little bit before we get into Dichotomy too juicy, because this is indeed my first time getting to chat with both of you lovely lads. So I want to find out more about you just as people and as a group. I heard that Morgan is the music theory chord lover of the band. Does that mean that you are classically trained? Do you come from a musical family? Why are you that one?
I do. I come from, my dad is very musical. He plays jazz piano and saxophone. He was going to pursue a career in music. I think just before he met my mom. He was on the way from Malaysia to Berkeley College of Music in Boston.
Oh, I know. I'm always like, Berkeley, that's right. Like, not the same Berkeley.
Like, oh, shit. Is that Berkeley? But it's not.
It's so funny.
So he had an epiphany in Taiwan during the stopover. He had an epiphany that he doesn't think it's the right time to do music, to make any sort of career out of it. At I think it was the 80s, in the 80s. For a Malaysian Asian man to do that. So he was like, to play jazz. It's like, it's okay. I'll let my, son or daughter in the future maybe pursue that.
Oh my gosh.
So he turned around, went back to Malaysia, and then started his own, path that is not music. Now he like manages, he does mining now. But for a while there, it was a struggle. But then I came into the picture, but 13 years, in my life, I saw a kid play a piano, and I think it was out of just literal jealousy because every kid at that party flocked around this boy, and he was playing like chopsticks or something.
Oh yeah, he wasn't even bringing like Bach to the table, or he was
like, that's not even hard. I couldn't play. And I was like, what the hell? But it's just me being an arrogant little shit. And I just looked at my dad. I was like, I want to learn music. And that's when he went like, okay. He wanted to test if this was like a little phase. And he knew there was some musical thing in the family, but he just kind of kept going on and told me I have all these hoops to jump through before I could start my lessons. So he made sure my grades were up in school. And then if my grades drop, then I lose the month of music tuition and all that stuff. So it's like a constant upkeep. I had to keep up taekwondo practice. I had to keep up
taekwondo.
Yeah, I had to keep up golf.
Damn! Look, Fletcher's learning something.
Yeah. And then my dad's like, well, you can do taekwondo because that's like more kick based. Not karate, which is more fist based, because that will affect your technical ability.
Whoa, your musical ability. Yeah. That's very interesting. Is that...
Well, the knuckles, right? Because you're breaking
right.
wood, right?
Whoa.
So, and then after that, I just kept playing music, and I joined like a not so terrible school band. And then...
always terrible school bands.
Yeah, always crap. then I went into the world of the world music because I met a bunch of other musician friends outside of my school circle, and we started this like ethnic band that eventually went to do 2 shows at the World Rainforest Music Festival.
Whoa,
and that was always held in Borneo. Yeah.
That sounds incredible. Can we have a quick pause and you tell me what the World Rainforest Music Festival is like?
Yeah, so it's so different from dance music. Like we're so used to the dance music sphere, right? So we know, like in Australia you got Stereosonic, in America you got Holy Shit, you got EDC, you got Lollapalooza. But well, that's not really electronic. But then there is like the metal and punk side, right? That's stuff that we probably don't know about, but those fans know. But there's like a whole world out there for world ethnic music, and people do travel the world for different festivals and follow different bands. And so that was sort of the world I got brought into when it came to festivals. So it was a 13-piece band, and then I played in a smaller like Polish world band, but I was sort of like a sessionist. And yeah, basically it was just a bunch of musicians coming together to do world music, and from there on, I got hooked, and then I moved to Australia, and then I met Fletch. Yeah, what's his name again?
This guy. This guy with the cute dog.
A DJ competition. And then Fletch will tell you more about this DJ competition too in a bit. So I met him after the competition, which we both won, but like a year apart.
Okay.
And that's where everything sort of started.
You knew you were each of a high enough caliber to get together in the studio.
Yeah,
You're like, okay. Yeah, incredible story. I need Fletcher to match that too, though. I want to hear. I heard you're the technical guy, and I want to hear how you walk down this path of music. And I'm anticipating that it might be a little bit more of an in the box journey than the international wildness that.
No, you'd be surprised. Let me preface this again. This entire time, I don't know how to produce music, okay? But up till the time I met Fletch, I dabble, like not good. So then I'll let Fletch start. Quick
ask. How many instruments do you play, Morgan? Sounds like maybe quite a few.
Proficiently, like if I were to say like competently, I could do just the piano very, very well.
Because you saved those knuckles.
If I were to just jam in a band, like hand percussion, no problem. Guitar, not a problem. And like world instruments, not really a problem. But I wouldn't call that like improvisationally like good. But I understand it, and I played a bunch. I played the erhu. I played the yidiki, which is the Australian didgeridoo, and just a bunch of weird stuff.
Man,
the jaw harp, the Vietnamese jaw harp.
Amazing. Okay, Fletcher, it's your turn. Thanks for hanging by, buddy. Let's hear your spiel.
So I got into music pretty. Not as well. I played violin in school, but that doesn't really count. Like I feel like everyone had their little stint with recorders. Some kind of
We all know recorders. That's the truth for sure.
I did the violin in school.
Hot cross buns.
When I was really young, like I've always been like a really maths and science type of person, and like basically every weekend I used to want to go to this like science museum in my hometown where I was from. And so Mum got me like a membership, and we could go there. But part of it was they had this like music lab where you could go in and make music, just on the weekends or school holidays or whatever.
Because music is math, people. Music is math.
Exactly. The place was called SciTech. It's pretty funny.
It's still a thing.
Yeah, it's still a thing. It's still there. But I remember the very first time I was like 11, I went into this place and I made a song, and you could print it on like a little cassette tape. And I had my song that I'd made on cassette tape, and I would take it home and play it on the home system and just be like, wow, I made a song, like it's on a cassette tape. And that was just the coolest thing to me.
How old were you when you wrote your first song?
About 11.
Oh, do you remember what it was called? Did you give it a fun name?
It was like based on little loops that you could drag in the software, and it was all loops based on Pachelbel's Canon.
Aha.
Which is like a famous.
Yes.
It's
in every song. Vitamin C scrub done. Now I'm not going to be able to sing it, but. Yeah. Kind of like that.
So you could basically stack any loops together of that song, and they all work together because it's all in the same key and in the same chord progression. But From there, I basically just slowly but surely, moved my way up through the ranks. So it was called Do Re Mix, the software.
Yes, nice.
Total beginner stuff. And then I was experimenting with Sony Acid Music Studio, which is like an old school music production program, which Morgan actually
used as well.
Used to use as well.
And then we did when film as well. We did all the Sony stuff.
It's famous because of this one video where Rusko, the
yes,
OG
I do.
producer,
of course, Woo Boost.
Produced music on this like 1990 CRT monitor with like cans of Red Bull, and he's talking about how to make dubstep, every music producer I've spoken to has seen that one video.
Oh,
using this.
We're having to link that when this is on YouTube later. We're gonna have to link that.
So we did that software. Then I was playing around with Fruity Loops, and then eventually found Ableton, and just really drilled down on like I'm the type of guy who likes to read the manual. So like
me too.
Hats off to you.
Manual readers.
So
that's incredible. Do you also read the terms of service updates when they pop up on your computer?
I flick through them though.
You do the Spark Notes. I like that. I like that attention to detail.
So like we both actually before music wanted to be like in film, and I used to do a lot of film stuff. I read this like super dry, boring book called The Filmmaker's Handbook. It was like 700 pages of technical analysis on like camera lenses and things.
Well, this will make sense when it comes to talk about music later on. Like
I already see how it makes sense, and Myriad of Miriam is saying shout out to reading the manual. So you've got fans of fans of the manual.
So that kind of gave me like a really deep understanding of the technical side of music making, and so when we. I like DJing as well. Again, very math-based DJing. It's counting and
keys, exactly this.
So we both entered this. So I entered the DJ competition in 2011. Morgan entered in 2012, and we both won. And so I sort of had to go suss out the competition. See who this guy is that was taking my crown.
I love it. And you've got a little jealous streak too.
We got in the studio, and our very first session was. We were writing some music, and I was like on the computer producing some stuff, and Morgan's in the back writing down chords on like a staff.
Oh, wow.
On like proper
score
sheets. Yeah. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? Like, I've never seen anyone make
like,
music
what
this way.
year is it?
Clicking on the screen and just like click notes until they sound good was my method. I had no idea like how to write a chord or a chord progression or any of that stuff. So Morg's really taught me a lot about that. To the point where now
we're so equal.
Morgan's obviously still has way more knowledge, and he knows what it's supposed to be. But I'm now obviously.
Well, his ear is now trained to a point where like I haven't worked with anybody that. Well, there's a few people we've met in our lives now, but as a a partner in music, it's really impressive to see how Fletcher's brain can detect the sound. Not necessarily, he wouldn't necessarily be able to go on the piano and hit it, right. But he'll be able to click it.
Oh, wow. I see. Because that's your piano. Like that's his thing, key right? roll is your version.
Yeah. So he now knows how to go for a specific emotional pull. And to achieve that, a certain sound needs to happen, or a certain harmonic modulation needs to happen. And he knows to go there now. Wow. And it's very impressive to see. And in that process too, I've learned a lot from Fletch. Literally, he taught me everything I know about Ableton. I didn't understand what any of the knobs did. And the craziest thing that Fletch taught me was, well, there's only one way to find out, drop a sound. And
that's so true.
0 to 100, and your brain will log that, how that sounds. And eventually your brain will come together and combine them. And I was like, that's not a way to learn. I was like, the manual says this, but he goes, well, there's that too, but music also comes from listening. So I didn't understand that. I knew that from piano, you got to listen. But when it came to the computer, I was like, it's a computer, you got to read. I said, no, you still got to listen. Yeah.
That's incredible.
There was this early, incredible synergy going on in the early stages of Slumberjack. And we decided to ditch our individual solo projects since, we had one. I had one. It was going nowhere. I could safely and embarrassingly tell you that it was definitely going nowhere.
I don't know if that's true because it helped you win that remix contest, which literally brought you to your musical life partner. So,
Right.
so
No, it
I
wasn't
think
a
that
remix
was
contest,
the
it was a
journey you
DJ.
were on.
It was a DJ competition. We were DJing.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. That's
Not producing.
DJ competition. Damn, that's even cooler. That is so cool.
Yeah, so basically over the last however many years, we started the project officially in 2013.
I know it's
So
been
it's been-
almost a decade. How crazy is that shit?
Yeah, 2013 on your birthday. So it's been almost a decade. We put our first song out on Morgan's birthday, 2013.
Wow, happy birthday.
Also
What a
the
cool way to
birthday.
celebrate.
Birthday of Slumberjack. So yeah, almost 9 years. In 6 months it'll be 9 years.
Wow.
My goodness.
Oh my god.
I know, I just love to let that sink in for a second.
And I'm reading, I think it says you're maturing nicely.
Wall that says you're maturing nicely.
That's just written on your wall. That's beautiful.
No, it's a
postcard.
birthday card I received.
Well, you are. I would have to say that you are. And I think Dichotomy as a debut album is evidence of that nice maturity, right? Like, it's amazing that you kind of started this project and had success with it pretty early on. Like, Slumberjack has done very well, but yet you still surely have been on a journey to figure out exactly what Slumberjack is, the voice of Slumberjack. And I imagine that the decision to make a debut album and release an album is kind of a statement of saying, we found the big message that we want to hand you. Is that how you felt about it? Is that kind of what brought it about, or was it being stuck inside?
With a little appendix. So the statement you said was right, but we like to go bracket at this time.
Yes. Absolutely. Of course. Albums are definitely chapters in your life, right? They're not the full memoir or whatever. But talk to me about when you made the decision, okay, we want to tackle a large project like a debut album. Was it something that you kind of knew you were going into? Was it we're in lockdown and we might as well work on something?
Yeah, so an album's always been in the back of our minds. It's to us, it's kind of a mark of like a legitimate artist, a serious undertaking, and it shows that, it's a big commitment of time for, it might not be great. And then you've just spent all this time working on something that's, it's a lot of energy and time to invest in a single project. So it's, I guess for an artist, it's riskier than just releasing singles or EPs or shorter projects. So we wanted to make sure that we were in a position where we knew we could pull it off. And it was important for us to have all that experience of the years of doing singles and EPs to sort of get that confidence that we had the tools and the ability to pull off what we wanted to achieve. And also just the time to hone in decide what it was we wanted to do. And then, of course, COVID reared its little head, and that gave us kind of the perfect opportunity to embark on something. I remember sitting down in the studio with Morgs and having that conversation, like, I think it's time to do an album. Let's do it.
And he said,
I
thought you'd never ask. No.
Yeah. Sort of. I mean, it's...
No, we never really sat down to like... We talk about it like it's a pipe dream, It's like one day. We'll do this one day. And then that day never came because we were always touring. And then it did because of the pandemic. It was kind of like... I know it was really difficult for a lot of people during the pandemic, but... there was a silver lining there for us.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can hear the construction noise that just started outside my room. If you can't, then that's great. I want to take it back to where you were at one point. You brought up how both of you had these aspirations of working in film and that tied into the music. And I was not shocked to hear that, because when I listen to your music, and especially on Dichotomy, on your EPs as well, I think you've always had this very atmospheric and kind of like, it conjures a world. It's the type of music that when I listen to it, it conjures a space. It makes me feel like I've entered a certain realm. And I was curious if you brought that mindset when making your music, but it sounds like you might if you have a background in video storytelling. Am I right? Do you imagine spaces and places when you're writing your songs?
Yeah, we do. I mean, like what Fletch said, he started with this program, Sony Asset for music, and then the film counterpart was called Sony Vegas Pro. And I also had Sony Vegas Pro. My dad bought me this secondhand, I think it's DV8 with Firewire 400 cable, like a shitty small little camera. And I was trying to make, little short films on it. I had this book called by Andrew Main. I know the name now. How to make an action movie for $99.
Ooh, love this. I learned how to make the camera look like it was shaking today.
He's now a friend of mine. Like, we don't have to go into this, but like I was doing also magic, like card magic and coin magic.
What do you mean we don't have to go into this? We're going to have to see a trick before the end of today's program, by the way.
And we could. I mean, Andrew Main is a magician. He's an inventor too, but most magicians also dabble in, DIY film, because that's the way we could get ourselves on the internet and perform these tricks. So from there, that kind of came about. Then, knowing that Fletch likes this kind of stuff too, we often write and complete our demos to picture. And this is not our picture, but like we would pull up. I think there's a video on our Instagram. There is where we used I think it was a global Asahi ad, and we kind of just put that on mute, and we had I think it was paint going on in the background. Sort of just matching to that imagery, and that worked out. And I think when we did Hades in our last project, we matched it to the 300 Spartan fight scene, the slow-mo fight scene, which is classic. I think a lot of people do that.
What? That's so cool.
Recently Tenet, and then recently we started getting really inspired by Dune.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. That movie was incredible. These are all very like Feast of the Senses movies that you're referencing to. Like, these are not just like little movies you put on popcorn films.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think it's also important you noted like being in a space, which is like really important for us, not only in the song writing in terms of like, I think certain chord progressions and melodies can kind of evoke feelings. I still don't really know if it's like an innate thing or if it's something that we learn, like why does a certain melody sound sad or happy? Like, is that in us already, or do we learn that from just seeing sad movies and hearing sad music? But, also in the mix, in our mix downs, we kind of, we carefully craft the sound and for Dichotomy album, it was all done to sound like it's in a really large environment. So you're sort of listening in this big cavernous space, and you can do that. The technology that we have available now allows us to do that through different types of reverbs, and you can sort of, it's very subtle, but your brain interprets it as the size of the room, the type of the room. Is it hard? Is it soft?
And the crazy thing is, most people have never experienced that room too. Yet you feel like you were there.
Yeah. And then there's one song, Not For You, which is very intimate and close with the vocal, and especially when that drop comes in, it's all kind of like everything gets sucked out of it. That's like right there in your face. And we were able to do that as well by taking those elements away and kind of bringing everything really close. So it's really amazing how you can kind of shape the sound in that way to be in whatever space you want.
It's so interesting to me that you set out to make an album that sounds like it's happening in this giant cavernous space, with the dichotomy of knowing that you're making it in a global lockdown, which is maybe the opposite, or it doesn't feel feels very tight.
Maybe it's our subconscious of going to the extreme. It feels trapped, so we wanted to have this
this freedom. What other dichotomies did you explore when putting this album together? Because you didn't name it Dichotomy on an accident. I know that much is true.
It's just, what other dichotomies happened for this one?
So I mean, obviously we talked about Memory and the Reprise being like a light and dark version. I think there's always been this dichotomy within us as songwriters between the earlier days of Slumberjack with the kind of more bass-driven beats, hip-hop, trap, instrumental records, and kind of the next phase of where we move towards,
I don't even know what to call it too.
Which is not exactly pop, but it is definitely pop influence, and there's more vocals, and it's more chordal and luscious and pretty. And you know, we've almost got two sets of fans from those two different worlds, and obviously there's huge crossover because it all has that Slumberjack feel to it. But part of the challenge to us of this album was to bring those two sounds together. So like you have songs like Better Off, which is, you know, the Slumberjack version of pop music, and Not For You and I. But then that's sort of contrasted with the real experimental side, like Arc Second, Opia's Theme, Prologue, these types of more electronic tracks. So that was kind of a challenge to bring those sounds together and make them fit together. There's of course the light and the dark.
Well, there's also the internal battle too. Like, when we set sail to write this album, we're like, you know, what direction do we take this in? Do we write what we want? Do we write I mean, it sucks to even say that. Like, we even thought, like, do we write what the fans want, or do we write what the fans think they want, or what we think the fans?
That's such a real thing. I know that producers are having that conversation with themselves, like, and it's crazy. People don't like talking about it
because we obviously like to put out the image that we're always writing to our heart, like, but not really. When you know, we've been touring for a while, and there's a certain expectation that people put on us, and a certain expectation that we put on ourselves. But like, you know, the last thing you want is to write from the heart and put it out there, and then for a publication to go, you know, album 2 out of 10, Dichotomy sounds like a demo made. Like,
you're like, just stab me in the heart already.
You know, just end me now. You know what? You know, might as well just shoot me now. Like, but like, so there was that internal battle too. And I remember, you know, having all that conversation with Fletch too. And this is like, you know, a peek into our writing process. It'll be like behind closed doors. Would be, is this too poppy? Like, oh, does that sound too much for people to understand? Like, would your average Joe understand this progression? And this is something that we both debate on. And that also was part of Dichotomy. We're like, this is nuts. Like, how is it so difficult to decide? Because the problem with being like the music theory guy is that you can give me a top line or a vocal top line, and I could figure out any chord progression underneath and make it work. So we have the flexibility of being to have near infinite possibilities, but then we also have the curse of too, you know, many options.
Yeah. That's
like, it's not easy to make the decision. I could, like, Fletch would come back and go, like, this is a weird progression, but it works. And I'm like, but it doesn't work in theory, but it works here. I was like, this is, and yeah, it takes us forever to figure out the right harmony for a song before we even set, like, to write the drum beat or choose the sounds. Like, just the piano part before we convert it into synth, it's like a super long process.
Do you feel like making this album, and by the way, I just want to say, I think you both did a wonderful job of finding the middle ground there, because
it's not a 2 out of 10.
No, I think you did wonderful. I really truly think it's a beautiful, I said before you guys came on, I said I think this is the type of album that people should listen to from beginning to end. It feels like there was a lot of thought put into the way that everything flows, and you do a wonderful job of, you know, I do sense and know those poppier songs when they come on, but what I think makes them so intriguing is that there's just enough there that surprises you, you know, because we've all heard those songs with a top line vocal, and you kind of almost know where it's going before it gets there, right? But you add these tension moments or these textural bits that surprise the brain, you know, and it's like, so you want to sing along, but you're also like, where am I going? and then I love those songs, like the ones you were listing as like the more experimental ones, like Arc Second, I think was my favorite track on that album. I personally love very experimental stuff. If you ever want to just make something that you think no one else would like, I'd be happy to listen to it, because I'm sure I'd probably really like it. But yeah, you all did a fabulous job finding that middle ground. But I wonder if in the process of kind of forcing yourselves to, did you walk away with a lesson about that? Like, do you now, is it still going to take you so long to find that middle ground, or did you find a way that you go, oh, this is how we approach it?
I think we have sort of through this process learned really what the sound that we want to go for is. Like, there's a handful of tracks where we can point to and be like, that is bang on, and maybe like this one's a little too much this way, this one's a little too much that way, but these, you know, whatever tracks. I don't want to say because I don't want people to, listen to them differently.
Yeah, don't want to poison the well there. Like, let everyone have their own opinions.
But
right?
we have between us like the tracks where we're like, this is the right direction.
That's so exciting.
I also kind of think it's going to be a constant battle. It's like we're going to have to live with this type of situation. We have a formula, sort of, between ourselves, but then I feel like it's never set in stone. Like the next project will come along and we'll then have a new set of problems and challenges that we're gonna have to overcome. And I think that's what makes it fun for us. But I mean, what's the point of writing music if we already knew we're gonna go in the studio and write 128 BPM house song all the time and the same kicks, and there's no challenge there. So we love the idea of challenge. Like you said, Arc Second was there was a set of rules that were broken, essentially in terms of the typical formula of writing dance music. But it's neither dance nor is it, big screen, feature film, cinematic music. It's one or the other. It's not or.
Although in the chat, people are saying, you created an album with the mindset of a film soundtrack. Now you just got to make a film soundtrack. You got to score a film is the next step.
Yeah, man. If any Hollywood studio want to hit us up, even if it's not Hollywood, any studio wants to hit us up for a project, if it's the right move, let's do it. Let's hit it.
I'm so sorry. There was another thing that you had said that I wanted to touch on, and now of course it's gone. But
it'll come back.
Yeah. I know that I wanted to talk to you guys about, I knew that you had been on this journey to kind of like incorporate and fold more pop structure and these kind of pop sensibilities into your music. I want to know what pop icons are forming what's the pop music that gets Slumberjack going in between writing sessions? What are you feeling?
You mean like recently, or pop in like the pop we've been listening to as kids and teenagers all the way to?
Either way, what's inspiring you? What pop songs maybe inspired this album that would be surprising, if such a thing exists?
That's the first time anyone's ever asked us that.
That's a very good question.
It's the first time I've ever asked myself that. And I actually don't think there is any. I don't really like pure pop music.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I wanted to do it. And why
interesting.
We've been drawn to it.
We want to write the type of pop we want to listen to.
Yeah.
There comes this interesting jealous thing, you guys. Not that you're jealous of pop music, but you're like, let's figure it out. Like, let's just do that.
We can do it better.
So, I think probably the best example of like straight pop is not for us, but we love the work of artists like Porter Robinson, Madeon.
Well, Skrillex's pop is great. I like some of Diplo's work, the Jack U stuff.
Oh yeah,
that was kind of like the first time you hear, Take You There with like Kaiser, that vocal and then that drop. Yeah, I would say it's around. It's sort of we're not really like considered the pioneers of it, but we're just kind of the extension of the evolution of.
I feel that. Yeah. It's like experimental pop more, like almost like on the fringe, and I sense that. That's fun.
Pop really is just popular, right? It's just whatever's popular, and if we can make popular music, great. I'd love to. Everyone wants music that's popular, of course.
And I think also that the right word to use that. Well, personally, I like to use the word palatable. Just
accessible sometimes, I like to say. Like,
sorry, what was that?
Accessible. Like somebody hears it and it doesn't take a whole lot of like theorizing. Yeah, they're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's too experimental sometimes, and people get like, confused, I guess, about it.
Going back to the visuals, Joey Headset wants to know if you helped create those visuals for the live performance that we saw earlier, and they said it felt very innovative, the setup. So what was going on there? And this is a great segue to talk about your live set, because I know you guys love to perform live.
Oh, I'll say this first. Fletcher does lots of the visuals on the live.
Oh, cool.
So everything we did was very in-house. We'll still do it in-house. Yeah. I'm going to start with how we even think about the live show.
Yeah, so like we always have wanted to put on like the live show is not just about the audio; it's also about the visual experience
and the lighting
and the lighting, which is ties into the visual. So our live show we have like we do a DJ set and we have a live show. So the live show is very curated into the point where, you know, our last tour we spent, you know, like 48 hours in this warehouse with the whole light rig and the lighting programmer just going, that light needs to be on for that hi-hat, that light needs to be on for that snare drum. Like really getting everything dialed in. So
even the color,
every sound has a light.
It's like, do we do aqua green or mint green? It's like peppermint green, and then
you're
just
like looking at swatches from Pantone, like, wait, no, but this one, I think it's a little warmer.
Pretty much.
Hex code mining.
have the feeling. So, and then a big part of that is the visuals. So, you know, in the past, you know, Morgs and myself both worked on the visuals a lot for the show. And with the exception of the intro song, we made all the visuals for the whole show. So it's basically like making a 75-minute animated film.
Wow.
For this new campaign, where literally today will be the first day I sit down and start
a new program,
coming up with the new concepts for the next show. I think we're going to do a lot more less 3D, kind of more 2D based stuff to tie in with the ideas of the album and sort of like dual tone concepts. But specifically for the memory video that was played earlier, yes, I did all those visuals, and I just have always wanted to experiment with projection mapping. So we had these like pieces of card which we then projected onto and just played around with, you know, it's kind of cheap tricks really, like it's just 3D effects where the things move in, but because it's projection mapped it looks really effective. I actually had Taylor, the vocalist, film himself against a white wall with his phone singing the song, and then I was able to cut his mouth out and threshold and different effects to kind of have his, you know, face on the visuals singing the record as it was being played and stuff. So it was a lot of fun to work with.
That's so cool.
And yeah, it was challenging, but lots of.
So it's also a cost-effective method because again, that was, you know, already during the pandemic, and we wanted to shoot a video and we wanted something interesting, so we worked with the Powell TV guys, and we wanted visuals. So the cheapest way to do visuals is not, you know, cart in LED walls where you have to hire them and have a whole rack to, you know, make them. Now we just need a projector with a computer that we already own, projected on these, what do you call those things? The core flute cards. Core flute cards that, you know, we cut out. Fletch came to my house one day. We, you know, shut the blinds and pulled the curtains.
That sounds fun.
In the living room, and had the projector and like sat there, and it was like producing a lot of heat and was hot as hell.
Recreating the club. It had been a while. You're like, let's sweat and turn the lights down. That's so fun. I love that. I love that you have that control as well, because it just continues the cohesive like universe that Slumberjack is living in, right? That's so cool. And
like it is, we love to control every aspect of everything that we do.
It's a problem.
Hey, at least you found a way to collaborate with the two of you. That sometimes takes a lot of work in itself. I love that you mentioned too this light's going to go off with this snare and then this color and all this, and because that really does create this like almost like multi-sensory experience, right? But that reminded me that I heard that Morgan tastes sounds. True or false?
True. Yes, it's a form of synesthesia. It's taste or smell taste to audio.
Yeah, and your music smells like elderberries.
Elderflower.
Elderflower. Okay, sorry. I got Monty Python on the brain.
Album just has this great elderflower vodka soda flavor. It's amazing.
Is that how you know in the studio where you're like, oh, this song is hitting the mark because I'm getting the taste of
it's always elderflower when Slumberjack music is done.
That's so
but
funny.
Dichotomy had this like zest to it, so I'm adding in a bit of like vodka in the palate. I'm tasting a bit of sting to it.
One day you should create a signature cocktail to sell at your concert so everyone can have the full experience.
Yeah.
Dichotomy cocktail be nice and layered.
And all the colors as well.
Yeah,
it'll be great. One day. That's a good idea.
One day. Or whenever I come to see you, I'll just sneak my own cocktail and I'll be like, I'm getting the full show.
Just let us know, and then security. But is that your drink? You're like, I got the green light.
Exactly. This is sanctioned. This is
Yeah.
sanctioned. No, that's incredible. I'm so excited. I hope that our conversation today has been slightly inspirational. If you're gonna move on from this and start crafting the Dichotomy live show, that's so exciting. I hope.
We are just starting today.
Yeah, I hope that it comes soon. I know that, it's if you're just starting the conception of it, it's probably too early to say quite when you'd hit the road, or do you know? Do you have your plans?
Yeah, no, we have a whole bunch of dates penciled in. Like, the show itself is well conceptualized. This is just
the final
actually going
touches.
through the motions of making the content. Like, we know what we want.
Mm-hmm.
We just can't announce the dates yet.
That's
But
fair. That's fair. Don't and
Yeah.
everything's been so crazy. I mean, it's really just like a blessing that you can plan a tour and that everything lined up, at least, fingers crossed that nothing goes too crazy or awry, but it's going to be such a big part of it to perform this album out for people. I can't imagine like that's going to feel good. Have you had any chance to do that in a DJ set or anything like that?
Yeah, we have had 2 shows since.
Oh, great.
We able to test some of the records out for the very first time. Yeah, that was crazy. Like, can't believe we wrote an album without really road testing. Because in the past, we get to road test demos and not say anything and see the reaction and then sort of workshop it in the studio. But yeah, happy to announce it works.
It works, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, yeah, previous to that, were you just testing on Edna? You were like, is she dying or is she okay with this?
No, she wasn't even alive.
Oh, yeah, she's a baby. So sweet. Yeah. Well, now you can play it for Edna and see how she feels. I want to quickly mention as well, we are coming up to our hour, and I thank you both so much for, I feel like there's so much I could still chat with you about. You're very, very interesting fellows, but I want to mention and plug that you made a whole visualizer for the album, which I think is really wonderful, and now seems to me that it's part and parcel with what Slumberjack is all about. Fletcher, did you put that together, or did y'all work with somebody to put that together?
Yeah, so we sort of conceptualized the concept. We, came up with the idea.
How else would you do it?
We wanted to have, it's a very basic, it's not designed to be sat and watched all the way through from start to finish. But the idea is, we often see a lot of our friends, when people are around, they just like to have music playing on the TV.
Yeah, totally.
The idea is to have some kind of like
smart TV,
moving artwork that kind of goes along with the album. So we picked a whole bunch of really nice cinematic locations around Australia, and it sort of follows this character that walks through all these different areas. So we worked with some of our favorite cinematographers in different parts of the world to kind of
cool.
grab the nice sections and then spliced it all together.
Yeah, the pandemic project again, just different parts of the world, different people coming together with this same brief and embark on this project separately and then put it all together in digital format.
That's so cool. Could you say where some of those locations are? I had no idea looking at it that it was, I guess I just didn't think about it that deep. I didn't know, that's so cool.
Yeah, the iconic one for me is in Lancelin, the desert in Western Australia. So this is the place where the desert meets the sea.
Oh, beautiful!
And it's just beautiful. Like, we did a shoot there with our photographer, and this is a photographer that we worked with nearly a decade now, and he did the press shot for this campaign too.
Yeah.
When we shot there in 2017, and I remember after that shoot, I got like some weird heat stroke, sunburn, windburn thing. I got sick for 3 days, and then we went back this time to shoot this thing, and we drove out there, and then wait for this, like, was it dusk? Was 5 o'clock?
Yeah,
dusk to hit, and then the sky was like bluish pink, and the sunset. It was beautiful, and we walked deep into the desert, like really far, just to catch one of those high dunes. That was like really beautiful for me to do.
And you got to do it, but did you physically go to all of the locations in the visualizer, or some of those were sent to you?
That's kind of where we cheated a little bit.
That's awesome. It's great.
Can have different people doing it in different locations, because obviously pandemic, and I was in Sydney, Morgan was in Perth.
We're not allowed to see each other because of the border. closure.
We had one of our friends
Oh,
film some
wow.
stuff in like
Italy.
Italy.
Wow.
Unfortunately, those shots didn't make it, but yeah, it was on like the Amalfi Coast and stuff.
That's so cool.
Ended up being too tough. There was like too many tourists. So.
All right, you just got more B-roll.
Yeah, exactly.
use it in the
yeah,
live show. I don't know.
It was a fun project, and then we've been able to like take little snippets of all those elements and make other little assets and all the Spotify canvases and stuff. So it's just been a fun little project to kind of have some visual content to go along with the album.
And it ties in your worldly roots. Keeping it international. Okay, I have one last question for you because I was curious about this too. I know that you incorporate a whole lot of crazy, weird little sounds from different instruments all over the place. I read that there's something called a dosh puller on this album. But what's on this album? What other fun little trinkets and sounds and tickles did you anything interesting that you played around with that you want to shout out?
We got the Igil, which is another Tuvan lute. The dosh puller is not a lute, it's a bowed instrument, the Igil. And then Fletcher sampled some, I think it was Sufi.
I didn't sample these ones.
Yeah, no. We got a sample from like a Sufi vocal pack. I sampled some sounds from just like the ambient sounds in Kuala Lumpur when I was there. So I was on I was in an apartment and just put my phone out and recorded what's on the street. And there was some, I think there was like a chant going on in the back, and there was like motorcycle sounds. And then we got the, I can't remember what airline it is, and neither will I say the name because I don't want to get sued for it or something. But it was an airline. It was an airline. What do you call that thing?
Like
Announcement. Like an announcement.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And a Pierce theme, you can hear that. That's a bunch, just like a bunch of sounds that we got in the past. I think collected from the Sarawak project as well. But we do most of the stuff in the box. So once we record a sound, we either mangle them. So you might hear a bass line, but that could come from a Nespresso machine, which actually Fletcher did sample. Yeah.
I love that. See, I love all those little like weird like
Fun fact, Nespresso machines buzz in G.
Which you both know now because you're basically tone experts.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. And honestly, again, I thank you for helping me kick off season 3 of this little show over here. It was so cool to speak with you. You're both very, very interesting brains. And I can't wait to see where everything that you've learned over the last near decade in putting this album together, where that's taking you. I know. I keep saying it. I can't wait to see where you're going. You must already be working on stuff. I know it's not even time to think about that because of course this album just came out, but there's no way you're not already working. I don't know.
There's already stuff in there.
But we'll have to wait to see that. Is there anything else you want to share or say or mention either about Dichotomy or the upcoming show or things that you've been thinking about or magic tricks that you want to show us before we get off the
Maybe
call?
One day. I'm thinking of putting some magic tricks on our Instagram. So just a little background story of ourselves. And it's not just always to like music. I think it's after this new decade, it's about time fans get to really know us for who we really are.
Yes, I love that.
We're figuring out how to deliver that in the most tasteful manner. But I think closing words is just, again, thank you so much for, being a supporter and every other publication and press out there and all the fans that are tuning in and listening and streaming our stuff. Like, you guys are the reason why we get to do this professionally and not have to do anything we don't enjoy. Like, thank you so much.
Right? Congratulations.
Because it's not, we are aware and we acknowledge that it's very rare and we are quite literally living the dream and we're not taking it for granted. So thank you.
Yay. I feel that. I don't think that you are taking it for granted. I think y'all are working really, really hard to give people what they want, but not necessarily what they want, somewhere between what you want to give them and what they want, right? The people want what you guys are putting out for sure. I want what you guys are putting out for sure. So thank you so much. And everyone listen to Dichotomy because it's so good and watch the visualizer. All right, y'all, enjoy your day. Thank you for
You too.
sharing your
Thank you.
morning.
You too.
Enjoy Friday.
Yes.
It is a Friday. Yay.
Bye.
Bye.